Okay, guys. So what we're gonna do here is something a little bit new. And I've got two video streams going on here. One is Facebook and one is YouTube. But we are going to be live streaming on both Facebook and YouTube. And I'm just going to answer memory questions for you. How to memorize. Let me get my coworker over here. Hang on one second. So there's my coworker. My alien's my coworker. So we're going to do something a little bit different here. We've done this once before on YouTube, but we've never done it on Facebook. We are going to talk about how to memorize anything, how to remember anything. If you have a question, ask it here in the box, and I'll do my best to understand it. If you have a question on memory, anything at all, how to remember names, numbers, give speeches without notes, give presentations. I have this headset on right now because it's for YouTube. But for Facebook, y'all don't. Hey, Faith, how y'all doing? How's everybody doing? Can everybody hear me okay? Can you hear me on YouTube? Can you hear me? So I want to talk to you about how to memorize anything. I was sitting here working today. I put Limitless on the TV. And as I was watching Limitless, I'm like, man, memory is so beneficial. It's so beneficial. If you really can develop an insanely good memory, it's so beneficial. And so I just started thinking, man, I just want to teach people today on how to remember anything. The premise to memorizing anything really comes down to a concept known as the memory palace or the mind palace. The memory palace, so I'm getting some questions coming in, how to memorize math formulas, how to remember practical questions for formulas, how to increase awareness, how to think logically. So let me get to all these really quickly. How to memorize when I'm getting distracted. Great questions. Let me lay the foundation first, and then I'm going to go back and answer these questions. How to remember math, how to learn a new skill. Love all the questions. Will working on memorization help with retaining what I read? Yes, Corey, I believe it will. So I'm going to lay the foundation here for what having a good memory is, and then I'll go back and answer these questions. Here's the foundation. First of all, I didn't come up with memory training, and you probably know that. But nobody in modern times really is responsible for what we know as modern memory training. Going back just 20 years, 30 years, you had a guy named Kevin Trudeau who had an infomercial in the 80s called Mega Memory. Kevin Trudeau is actually the company that I went to work for in the early 90s, almost 30 years ago. I never met him because he was in prison, and now he's back in prison. The system he was teaching was good, but he was kind of a corrupt guy. Or he just couldn't resist making a little extra money. That's a better way to say it. I don't want to say he's corrupt. But before him, there was a guy named Harry Lorraine and Jerry Lucas. They wrote a book called The Memory Book in the 70s. But before that, going back 2,500 years in Greece, there was a man named Simonides. It's spelled Simon, Simonedes, Simonides. And he was the father of modern memory training. He lived in Greece. And here is the story with how he came up with memory training. I don't know if this story is true or not, but it's on the internet. So let's assume that it's true, right? The story of how this got developed was 2,500 years ago. Simonides was in a room and the roof collapsed and killed everybody in the room except Simonides. He escaped. And after he escaped the room, then they started pulling the rocks off the people, and they realized everybody was crushed so bad they couldn't recognize the people anymore. And then somebody said, we need to identify the bodies. We need to figure out who was who. Simonides was the only person who was in the room before. So he went back and identified the bodies. And he said, that person was sitting there, 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 that person was sitting there. He identified all the bodies in the room based upon where they were sitting because they were crushed so bad nobody could recognize them. Then the light bulb went off in his head. He thought, oh my gosh, wait a minute. I just identified a room full of people based on where they were sitting. I could remember them the next day based on where they were sitting. And then the light bulb went off in his head. He thought, wait a minute, could I remember anything based on a position in a room? Could I know why I'm glad you're here too. He could remember, it clicked in his head. He was like, wow, I just remembered that based on that spot in the room. I wonder if I could remember anything based on a spot in a room. And then he went back to his house and he started imagining different things around his house. And as he imagined these different things in his house, he realized that if he attached something, he took something and visualized it. He didn't have a TV back then, but if he visualized it on his TV, then he could recall it later. If he visualized it on his microwave, he didn't have a microwave, he could recall it later. This was the origins to the system. The system was developed in 477 BC. It is known as the method of loci. Today, I refer to it as the mind palace or the memory palace. If you are a fan of Sherlock Holmes books, you have heard of the mind palace. And this is what it is: using a map of your house to memorize. Let me go through some of these questions that are right here and show you how to use the mind palace to answer the questions that are coming in. So here's is it true that we can study smart and not hard? Yes, of course it is. Frankie Robertson says repetition is the mother of learning. Yeah, it is. But if you use something like the mind palace, you have to repeat it less. It's you can get it here quicker. Let's see. I'm trying to find a question here on something that some of you, okay, here we go. Rift Valley Informer asks, how do you memorize an entire 1 hour presentation? Perfect question to answer, to apply to the mind palace. So I'm going to pick up my two cameras here and I'm going to show you how I would memorize a 1 hour presentation. This is my house. Welcome to my home. Bienvenidos a mi casa. Okay, so here's the deal. This is what I want you to do. Now we're in the hallway. People out here are going to think I'm crazy. This is what you want to do if you want to memorize, okay? Stand at the doorway of your house. Go in your house. Whenever you're standing in the hallway to your house, number 5 pieces of furniture in the hallway. For me, it might be my historical memorabilia. This check right here was written by Ronald Reagan in 1948. That down there was signed by George Bush. This was signed by Andrew Jackson, the 7th president of the United States. So this is what I would do. I would number pieces of furniture in my hallway. Number 1 is my Ronald Reagan check. Number 2 is my Andrew Jackson document. Number 3 is my grandfather's World War II uniform. Number 4 is this picture on the wall. And number 5, let's make number 5 over here. Number 5 is my trophy for winning the USA. Well, that's actually not, yeah, it is. That's my trophy for winning the USA Memory Championship. So let's go back. Let's back up. Number 5 pieces of furniture in the first room in your house. For me, number 1 is my Ronald Reagan check. Number 2 is my Andrew Jackson document. Number 3 is my grandfather's World War II uniform. Number 4 is this picture right here. And number 5, this is the trophy I got for winning the USA Memory Championship in 2010. So now I have 5 pieces of furniture numbered in the first room of my house. Now go to the next room in your house and number 5 pieces of furniture in that room. My next room is my kitchen. So number 6 is my refrigerator. Number 7 is my microwave. Number 8 is my spices over there. Number 9, there's my George Foreman grill. Can you see it? Ah, shoot. Number 9 is my George Foreman grill. And number 10 is my sink. Can you see my sink? There you go. There's my sink. There's my sink. So let's go back and let's figure this out. One more time. This is what I want you to do in your house. If you have kids, I want you to do this with your kids. Here we go. 1 is my Ronald Reagan. 2 is Andrew Jackson. 3 is my grandfather's World War II uniform. 4 is this picture. And 5 is that trophy down there. Number 6 is my refrigerator. Number 7 is my microwave. Number 8 is my spices. Number 9 is my George Foreman grill. And number 10 is my sink. Then the next thing I would do is I would come in here and I would number 5 in this room. So let's do it real quick. Number 11 might be my American flag there. I flew in Afghanistan. Number 12 might be this woman from Budapest. Number 13 is my TV. Maybe I'd make 14 that chair and 15 the window looking out my view there. So that's what you do. You number 5 pieces of furniture in every room in your house. 5 pieces of furniture in every room in your house. After you have these pieces of furniture numbered, then you use these as files, locations to store data. So let's say that, let's say you have an hour presentation you want to give, and you want to give a speech, and you want to stand up in front of the room, and you want to use no notes. How do you do that? Number the rooms around your house like I just explained. The next step, what you need to do is write out your speech. Write out everything that you want to say. Not word for word, but bullet point by bullet point. Let's say it's a speech on how to make more money. So you make your number 1 bullet point, how to make more money. Your next thing you want to talk about is to make more money, you need to be a good time manager. So you put time management right here. To make more money, you need to be a good communicator. So you put be a good communicator right here. You write out a list of the things you want to talk about. Now, typically, the average speaker would take those notes up there with them to the front of the room, and they would read the notes. You don't do that anymore. You use this system. You have the pieces of furniture in your house numbered. So now what you want to do is turn your speech into pictures and place it around the room. So what was the first item we had numbered in my house here? It was that it was that check. So that's the first item in my house. What's the first item on my speech? How to make more money. So now I see money. I visualize money flying out of that check. What was the number 2 piece of furniture in my house? And I say piece of furniture, but really it's just location. The second location in my house was that that document that I had that Andrew Jackson signed. This number 2 thing on your speech right here might be to manage your time more effectively. Be a good time manager. So you got to create a picture for that, and then you imagine that picture on that document. Maybe you see a grandfather clock and the cuckoo bird is coming out of that document. Cuckoo, cuckoo. Now go back. What was on the check? On the check was money. What was on the document? It was a clock to remind you of time management. 1 piece of furniture over. That was my grandfather's World War II uniform. What was the number 3 bullet point on your speech? It was you got to be a good communicator. So now you imagine maybe there's a telephone. By the way, check out this phone. Check out this old style phone here. So, all right. So on number 3, you want to be a good communicator. You imagine a phone over there on your number 3 document. Old style dialing phone. So now let's say you do that. You got 15 pieces of furniture numbered in this house. Now let's say you got 15 items on your speech. Each one you turn into a picture and imagine on a different spot. So the next day you get up in front of that room, no notes in your hand. You give that speech from memory. You stand up there and you say, hey guys, and you're not in this room, but you're thinking back to this room. You say, hey guys, I want to talk to you today about what's number 1, how to make more money. The first key to making more money is managing your time effectively, because you had a clock on the next piece of furniture. What did you have on the next piece of furniture? A telephone. Not only do we need to manage our time effectively, we need to be good communicators, whether it's on the phone or in person. Do you see how you could use this technique, very simple technique, to give a speech of any length without using notes? If you have kids in school, you got to teach this to them. You got to number pieces of furniture in your house, and then have your kids, the next time they have to give a speech in one of their classes, take the main ideas they want to talk about in that speech and visualize them around the room. You could give an hour, a 2-hour, a 10-minute speech, any length, with this technique. Great question. Let's see who has another question. How to memorize things faster and effectively. Well, the key to faster, there's 2 ingredients to speed with memorization. There's more. There's 3 or 4 that I can think of right now. The first one that I can think of is having a quick, sharp, focused brain, and you do that through good nutrition and exercise. You do that through drinking water, not tequila. So you got to have a sharp brain. The second thing, though, that you need to do to have to be able to memorize fast is start using the same pictures over and over again. Here's what I mean. Today, we just created a picture for time management, and we used it as a clock over there on that piece of data, or on that location in the room. To remember anything, you need a picture for it. That's the key. That is the foundation to memory. The language of your memory is pictures. They have done scientific studies with this. They've put a room full of people and they said a bunch of words, 100 or 200 words. Then they tested them on their recall. It was very low. Then instead of saying the words, they showed them a PowerPoint with the same words as pictures. Then they tested them on their recall. The recall was dramatically improved. The language of your memory is pictures. So knowing that, once you determine that your picture for the name Steve is a stove, and you determine your picture for the name Lisa is going to be Mona Lisa, use that same picture for that name every time. Once you have to remember numbers, you have to turn them into a picture. Let's say you take the number 21. You say my picture for 21 is going to be a deck of cards, as in blackjack. Use that picture every time for the number 21. Why? Because over time, you will get faster and faster. So here's a couple of my pictures for numbers. Number 9, I use baseball because 9 innings. If you're not an American, there's a lot of international people on my YouTube watching right now. So let me give you a different picture for number 9. Number 9, I use a balloon as well. So you got the balloon, the circle, and then the string coming down. So it looks like here's the balloon, and the string coming down is a 9. For 10, for the number 10, I use a fork and a plate because a plate is a circle. And then the fork kind of looks like a 1, so 1, 0. 10 is a fork and a plate. 9 is a balloon. 20 is fingers and toes. You got 20 fingers and toes. 25, I use a quarter. Like in the United States, quarter, nickel, dime, pennies. I use 25 cents. Here's my name for a word. Use that same picture over and over and over again. That is how you increase your speed at memory. Stay focused. That's good nutrition and exercise. Number 2, use the same pictures over and over again. This will increase your speed. The first time I ever memorized a room full of names, and I say a room full of names kind of joking, there was 5 people in the room, and I only remembered 3 of their names. Why? Because I didn't have pictures for names yet. I was an 18-year-old kid just learning this system. Today, almost 46 years old. When I walk into a room, I am 30 years older, almost 30 years older than I was 30 years ago. Do you like how that math works? I'm 30 years older, but I can remember more names today. Why? Because I have pictures for names determined. You get faster with your memory if you use the same pictures. Good nutrition and exercise. Use the same pictures over and over. The language of your memory will build. My third and final tip on this is something I learned from Ben Pridmore. I emailed Ben Pridmore in 2009. If you do not know who Ben Pridmore is is a 3-time world memory champion. He used to hold the record for the fastest to memorize a deck of cards in the United States at 24 seconds. To put that in perspective, I held the record for the fastest to memorize a deck of cards in the United States at 1 minute, 27 seconds. When I was chasing the USA Memory Championship, I emailed Ben Pridmore and I said, Ben, how can I get faster at memorizing a deck of cards? How can I increase the speed at which I memorize? Everything I've said up to this point is true. You have to be focused, good nutrition and exercise. Number 2, use the same pictures over and over. But Ben knew I knew that, so he didn't even bother sharing that with me. Instead, Ben Pridmore gave me the 3rd piece of advice, and it's so valuable I remember it 10 years later. He said, Ron, and I'm gonna get quiet here because I want you to get this as much as I got it. He said, Ron, trust your memory. Trust your memory. He said, what slows people down in regards to their memory the most is they don't trust themselves. They don't trust their memory. In other words, they'll be memorizing a deck of cards and they'll have it, but they don't really believe they have it. They doubt that they had it. So they'll slow down or they'll go back and they'll look. Ben said, don't do that. He said, go through it as fast as you can. Don't go back. Don't look. Go through it as fast as you can and set the cards down. He said, you will be surprised and you will be amazed at how much you recall if you just start trusting your memory. I did that and I cut my time in half. So trust your memory. What I say to you is that just trust your memory. And that goes for a lot. Stop the negative self-talk that you have. Oh, I got a terrible memory. I can't remember anything. The more you say that, the more you get stressed about your memory. And the more you get stressed about your memory, the more your brain produces cortisol. The more cortisol your brain produces, the worse for your memory. Cortisol is extremely damaging to memory. I just saw a picture right here I wanted to answer. It says, when you memorize magazine pages word for word, how much deep you create images for palaces. I mean, you create single images for every preposition, articles. Okay, so here's a question that just came through. I was on the Martha Stewart show 9 years ago. And before I went on, and for those of you who aren't in the United States, there's a TV personality in the United States called Martha Stewart. I was on the Martha Stewart show 9 years ago, and before I went on the Martha Stewart show, she said, by the way, this question that I'm answering right now is it's not only the answer to how did I memorize that magazine on the Martha Stewart show, but this will also answer the question, how do you memorize poems? How do you memorize lines if you're an actor? How do you memorize scripture if you're a religious person? And right now, I am attempting to memorize the entire United States Constitution, word for word. So the question that I'm answering right now is going to explain how did I memorize the magazine? How do you memorize Bible verses, poems, quotes, lines if you're an actor? And how am I memorizing the Constitution word for word? So back up. In 2009, I was on the Martha Stewart show. Before I went on the show, her producers gave me a copy of her magazine and said, Ron, we want you to memorize every page of her magazine. Not only that, we want you to memorize page 25, which was an article she wrote, word for word. How did I do it? Well, there was roughly 150 pages in that magazine. So I used 150 pieces of furniture. Boom. I had 150 pieces of furniture numbered. Let's say page number 17 talked about motorcycles. It didn't, but let's say it did. Well, let's say this is my 17th piece of furniture. I just imagine a motorcycle riding across his head. Oh, and for those of you on Facebook, you can't see. This is what I'm talking about right here. If this was my 17th piece of furniture, my alien right there. So Facebook can't see my friend, only YouTube. So that's how I memorized. And then when I went on her show, she said, hey, Ron, okay. She opened up the magazine and she said, what's on page 17? I just jumped to the 17th piece of furniture in my brain. And I said, motorcycles. That's fairly simple because it's not word for word. It's just thought by thought. That's That's pretty simple to do. I mean, I was able to do it fast, but the concept in of itself is simple. The next question, how do you memorize something word for word, like a poem, a verse, a magazine, a book, the entire United States Constitution, a poem? This is a little bit more involved. The preamble to the Constitution says this: we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. How do I memorize something word for word? Do you have to turn every preposition, a, than, e, I, into a picture? You do not. But you can. I do not. Here's my method. I read through the poem, I read through the paragraph in the Constitution one time to get a feel for it. Then I will take each section or each line. If it's a poem, each line. If it's the Constitution, maybe each sentence. Each line or each sentence will get their own piece of furniture. And then I will create an image in my brain that reminds me of that entire line. So let's take the first line of the Constitution, the preamble. We, the people of the United States. I'm not creating a picture for we, another one for thee, another one for people, another one for of, and the United States. I'm not creating 7 pictures to remember we, the people of the United States. Instead, on my number one piece of furniture, way back over there when we first walked in the house, on my number one piece of furniture, I am imagining little bitty people, little bitty tiny people, like millions of them, and they're walking around chanting, "We the people of the United States." And I look at that picture, and then I say the verse or I say the line to myself as I'm looking at it. We the people of the United States. Then I go to the next piece of furniture, which was number 2, back over there. The next line is, in order to form a more perfect union. Well, in the United States, union workers go on strike, and they go on strike to form a more perfect union. So I see union workers, and they have these signs, you see people striking, and they have these sticks with a sign on it. They're picketing, they're striking. So on my second piece of furniture, I see a bunch of people on that one, and they are striking in order to form a more perfect union. So I see the picture, I see the image on that piece of furniture. And as I do, I verbalize what the line says, in order to form a more perfect union. Then I always go back and review the one before. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. The next line is establish justice. My next piece of furniture, my next object, which was my grandfather's World War II uniform, I imagine a judge's gavel. When you got a judge, order in the court, order in the court, order in the court. He's establishing justice in his courtroom. So I will put that on my number 3 piece of furniture. Establish justice, establish justice. Then I will say it all to myself. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice. So the answer to your question is, when you use this system, do you turn every word, every preposition, a, e, I, a, e, a, the, and into a picture? No, you don't. I create a picture for the whole image, the overall image. I'm kind of getting technical here, and yes, I'm kind of getting technical here, and I don't want to lose anybody. Sometimes, I just love teaching this, and it's changed my life, and it's changed my life in so many ways. I mean, I get excited about this, and sometimes I think it's better just to keep it simple, and I am kind of keeping it simple right now, but I don't want to overwhelm anybody, because what I'm explaining to you right now is actually a very simple process. Um, uh, it's very simple if you master it. Here is a question that Brett just asked. Brett up in Canada. I hope you're doing well, Brett. Brett asked, how often do you use the same room to remember new information? That's one of the most popular questions. And the question is this: once you use this room, can you use this room again? The answer is absolutely you can. As long as the subject matter is different, you will have no problem using the same room again. For example, if you help your kids memorize their homework with this room, and you memorize it with them, an hour later, you could memorize information pertaining to your business and put it around the room. And you could use the same furniture and you're not going to confuse it. Now, here is an exception to this rule. The question is this, or the exception to the rule is this. If you use your room to memorize, let's say, history information, I wouldn't use that room to memorize more history information right away. If the subjects are similar, if the topics are similar, use a different room, use a different house until you have both strings of data solidified in your memory. Because until it's solidified in your memory, you're going to cross-reference the data if the topics are similar. If they're completely different, you could reuse the same pieces of furniture 5 minutes later and not confuse the data. Okay. How can I help myself when I study? Just concentrate on the study and not think about any else. So Hazan Aman asked, how can he help himself when studying, concentrate, not think about anything else? You know, there is a something known as the Pomodoro technique that I think is really handy when studying. The Pomodoro technique is this. The Pomodoro technique is Pomodoro, I believe, is an Italian word, and it means tomato. And if you can segment your studying into 25-minute chunks, you're going to be more productive. So get yourself a timer, set it for 25 minutes, and in that 25 minutes, turn off the TV, turn off Facebook, turn off your cell phone, press play on that timer. Let it go for 25 minutes and only study, only focus on this one thing. Do not let your mind get distracted. If you get distracted with something, have a pen and a paper and write down what you thought of, but then go right back to your study. When the 25-minute timer goes off, take a break and go for a walk, do something to get your blood flowing, or pay attention to what crossed your mind that you wrote down that you needed to pay attention to later. But during that 25 minutes, focus on nothing but your work. Work for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break. Go back to work for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break. Every time you do 4 cycles of these, maybe take a longer break, a 15 or a 30-minute break. But use the Pomodoro technique for focus. People say, oh, Ron, I don't have to do that. I can work just fine with the TV on or Facebook on. I'm great at multitasking. The human brain is not great at multitasking. If you think you're great at multitasking, try this experiment. Write the numbers down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Then write the words down. I am so great at multitasking. I can multitask, and it is so easy for me. Time yourself, how long it takes you to write down those words and that sentence. Then do this. Multitask. Write down 1, I, 2, so. Number 3, good. Number 4, at. Number 5, multitasking. In other words, write a number and then a letter and alternate going back and forth. It'll probably take you 2 or 3 times as long to write the same material because you're trying to do 2 things at once. Multitasking is not going to help you focus. So use the Pomodoro technique, study in 25-minute chunks, cut out distractions. If something pops into your mind, something you need to address or you're interrupted, write it down and come back to it later. I use the online timer, works for you. How do you remember notes? Brett, somebody just asked me how many pieces of furniture do I have numbered. I have about 2,500 pieces of furniture numbered, probably only about 40 in my house. I use my friend's house, my mom's house, my cousin's house, my favorite restaurant, my favorite bar, a school, an office, friend's house. So just use all kinds of buildings, sports stadiums. It doesn't have to be confined to your house. Go for a walk around your city and just walk down the street or whatever and number locations. How often do you review your existing palaces? I will review my palaces if sometimes I find it's a good way to go to sleep. Maybe instead of counting sheep to try to go to sleep, to relax your brain, just review your memory palaces, especially when you're first learning them. It's a great way to go to sleep. Another question might be, how often do I review the data that I store in my memory palace? And the answer to that is it depends on how important the information is to me. In 2012, I memorized everybody who died in the war in Afghanistan and the order of their death. There was 2,400 people. I memorized their rank, their first name, and their last name. I memorized it 7 years ago. It is important to me. So I will go back and review that data every few months to have those 7,000 words in my mind. When I was first doing it, when I was first memorizing it, I was having to review every day for a year. How do you involve emotions in the process of memorization? This is a great question. Somebody asked, how do you involve emotions in the process of memory? And this is such a crucial question. And here's why it's a crucial question. How many of you who were born and over 5 years of age or 7 years of age know where you were on September 11th, 2001? If you were in the United States and you're over 6 or 7 years old, you know where you were on September 11th, 2001. It was a dramatic day for our country and just an emotional day. Why do you remember that day? Why can't you remember where you were October 20th, 2001, just 5 weeks later? What's the difference? The difference is action and emotion. If something has action and emotion, it will go into your long-term memory. Maybe you don't know where you were on September 11th because you're not an American or you weren't old enough. So let me ask you another question. Have you ever been in a car accident? Oh, yeah, I have, Ron, sure. Okay. Was it day or nighttime? Who was driving? Where did it happen? How did it happen? Now I ask you, how many years ago was it? Ron, it was 4 years ago, or it was 5 years ago, or 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. Why can you remember something so clearly that happened 17 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 3 years ago, but you can't remember where you went last week? What is the difference? The difference is action and emotion. So if you want to remember something, you need to create it, the image in your mind with action and emotion. So when I'm telling you to remember anything, you need to have pictures to it. You need to also have action and emotion. The next question is how do you do that? How do you make pictures full of action and emotion? Well, just involve all your senses. I mean, if it's food that you're trying to imagine, don't just imagine food. Imagine the taste of the food. Imagine you're smelling the food. Imagine you can feel it going down your throat. Imagine you can smell the food cooking. Imagine you can touch it and you can feel the coldness of the apple. Here's an experiment. This is what I want everybody to do. If you're listening to this as you drive, don't do this, but everybody else do this. I want you to close your eyes and I want you to imagine on the table in front of you is a lemon. Big, huge, juicy lemon. I want you to imagine you get a knife and you slice that lemon right down the center. As you slice that lemon down the center, now it falls open and you have two big pieces of lemon, one in each hand. I want you to take one of your hands, that lemon, a yellow lemon, and that lemon is taking up your entire hand. You can feel how cold it is. Have your eyes closed and imagine this. The lemon is juice is dripping down your hand. The juice to this lemon is going all over your hand. You have that lemon in your hand. You can start to smell the smell of the lemon in the air. I want you to take that lemon and I want you to get it up as close to your nose as you can. And I want you to imagine that you're rubbing that lemon near your nose. And I want you to smell the lemon. I want you to feel the coldness of the lemon and the juices dripping down. To have your nose touch it. Your nose is now touching the lemon. And you can smell it instantly, that bitter, tart taste. Now, I want you to open up your mouth as wide as you can, and I want you to bite down on that lemon. And I want you to chew the lemon. And as you chew the lemon, the juices of the lemon start going down your cheek. As you're chewing the lemon, you can feel the peel of the lemon and how wet and it's the bitterness of that lemon in your mouth. When you were visualizing that, did you salivate? Did you salivate when you were visualizing that? If you salivated, that's because it was such a clear image of emotional impact to you. That's the kind of pictures you want to see when you memorize, something that evokes emotion. So those are some tips on how to involve emotion in your pictures. How much did it take? How long did it take me to master the Mind Palace is a question that just came in. How much does it take for an average person to use the Mind Palace? Well, I would say that you could master the Mind Palace method in a day, 1 day. It's simple. It's easy. On the top of this guy's head, I want you to imagine a motorcycle. On that TV, I want you to imagine water. It's easy. And you may say, well, Ron, I don't have my house memorized. Yes, you do too. You do too have your house memorized. Imagine right now if you closed your eyes and I said, describe your house for me. You could tell me where everything was at. You already have your house memorized. You just don't have it numbered. All I'm asking you to do is number it. And I'm asking you to number 5 pieces of furniture in each room. Why? To give you structure, but it makes it easier. If you know 1 through 5 is in that room, 6 through 10 is in that room, 11 through 15 is in this room, and I ask you what number 10 is, you know it's the last piece of furniture in that room. So I think the average person could number 20, 25, 30 pieces of furniture in their house in probably 10 minutes. I think they could go over it and say them over and over again. I have taught 6-year-old little girls to memorize the presidents of the United States back when there was 44 presidents, and she did it in an hour and a half. So I will tell you this, a 6-year-old little girl can memorize the presidents of the United States in an hour and a half. The average person should not have a problem with this. By the way, I do have a memory course, okay? We're 45 minutes in, and I haven't even plugged my course yet, but my memory course is Black Belt Memory. If you go to blackbeltmemory.com, blackbeltmemory.com, you can get a free gift there and check out the program. How can I increase your Mind Palace to 200 items? Number 40 pieces of furniture in your house, number 30 pieces of furniture at your school, number 30 pieces of furniture at your work, number of pieces of furniture at your friend's house. 200's easy. Well, why do I think teachers don't teach memory methods in school? They probably don't know them. They probably don't know the techniques. You know, we're just so ingrained into doing things the same way. I would love to teach this more to schools and students. It's dramatic, but you know, it's the way it is. Black belt. Glad you got your black belt. No, not blackboard memory. Black belt memory. Here's a question. Having issue focusing on things from getting distracted very easily by the thoughts at the same time, losing focus and having issue with short-term memory. How do you improve that? And that's Savanik Mogolu. Sorry if I mispronounced that. We answered a question on focus already. But focus is hard for everybody. It really is. I'm a memory champion, and it's really hard for me. Personally, I try to exercise. I do jujitsu. I'm getting ready to get a bicycle and start riding that for exercise. Exercise helps your ability to focus. There are things, though, other than good nutrition and exercise, drinking plenty of water, that you can do to improve your ability to focus. Scientific studies, and here is a magazine that I was the recent and I did not know this question was coming up. I just happened to have this on my coffee table. The recent issue of the Harvard Business Review, a special issue, has something in here on how to train your brain to focus. And I'm going to read you what they say on page 106 because I want to make sure that I get this right. They say, try to improve your balance of positive and negative emotions over the course of a day. Barbara Fredrickson, a noted psychology researcher at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, recommends a 3-to-1 balance of positive and negative emotions on the basis of mathematical modeling of ideal team dynamics by her collaborator, Marshall Losada, and confirmed by research on individual flourishing and successful marriages. So in other words, what she's saying is if you think more positive thoughts than negative thoughts, you will be able to focus better. Negative thoughts hurt your ability to focus. She goes on to say this. You can tame negative emotional frenzy by exercising. Whoa, I just mentioned that. I didn't, ha ha. Okay. You can tame negative emotional frenzy by exercise, meditation, which is something I want to do, and by sleeping well. So these are all things that are going to help your focus. By the way, I really try to avoid alcohol and pills to help you sleep, because that's not sleeping. That is knocking you out. And knocking you out is not restful sleep. And again, I'm reading an article right now from the Harvard Business Review, a question that just popped up on how to focus. Here are some tips. It helps you notice your negative emotional patterns. So anyways, I'm not going to read the whole thing. If you want to read it, it's the current issue of this. But basically, the author of this, or the researcher, Barbara Fredrickson, she found out if you're always thinking negative thoughts, it hurts your ability to focus. Kind of crazy, huh? Can I use animals to remember what did I do the last day? I don't know exactly what you mean by that, but yes, you can attach anything you want to anything. If you want to remember something, you can attach it to a piece of furniture or an alien statue or an animal in your brain. Absolutely. Alan Radulov, good eye, Alan. Alan just asked, is that the movie Limitless in the background? Yes, it is the movie Limitless in the background, which is actually the inspiration for this entire thing. I was working today and I just wanted to take a break. And I'm like, I'm going to watch a movie. And I'm like, what movie should I watch? I'm going to watch a movie on memory. So it's Limitless. So, and then I'm like, you know what? I don't want to watch a movie on memory. I want to give some people some good advice on how to improve their memory. Okay, here is a question that comes up over and over and over again. And that question is, how do you memorize math formulas? So I'm going to stand up here. How do you memorize math formulas? Okay, I'm going to show you how to memorize math formulas. I want you to imagine, what can I have you imagine? I want you to imagine a sphere, like a globe. So I want you to imagine a sphere, a globe right here. On this sphere or globe, it is the world. On this world, the equator goes around the middle. Let's say there's 4 continents on top, and 3 on bottom. I know they overlap. I know it's not perfect. There's 7 continents. There's not necessarily 4 on top and 3 on bottom. But for the purposes of this, there is. We have a globe. 4 continents on top, 3 on bottom. On top of the globe is a piece of pie, You decide that you're going to eat that pie. But as you go to eat the pie, you notice there's a rat right next there to the pie. And you don't want to eat a pie that a rat's been eating. We have a globe, 4 continents on top, 3 on bottom. There's a piece of pie and a rat right here. And that rat is frozen. He's an ice cube because it's the North Pole. Let me get a pen and show you what I just did. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this or not. I don't even think this is working. Is it working? So I just took a math formula and I turned it into a picture. Here's the key. Here's the secret to memorizing math formulas. This is what you need to do. In math formulas, you're going to have variables. Variables are things like R, which stands for radius, P, which stands for perimeter, W, which stands for width. In other words, you're going to have variables that repeat over and over, whether you're doing geometry or financial formulas or whatever. But you're going to have the same formulas repeat over and over again. So one of the best things that you can do is before you start memorizing the formulas, go through and look at all the variables. Go through and look through all the variables that are in these formulas. For example, R, P, W. Can y'all see that? R, P, W. These are variables that are going to repeat over and over again. Create pictures for all the variables. R, you might use a rat. P, you might use a pirate. W, you might use a window, like a window. You look outside on a window. It doesn't matter. But my suggestion to you is this. Before you start memorizing formulas, before you memorize one math formula, look at the variables. Look at the variables that repeat over and over again. Once you've looked at the variables, create images for the variables. Tell yourself, every time I see an R, I'm going to think of a rat. Every time I see a P, I'm going to think of a pirate. Every time I see a W, I'm going to think of a window. Once you have pictures for the variables, it becomes very, 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 very easy to memorize math formulas. All you got to do is create stories. You have a formula, let's say, and the formula says 4/3 and the formula says this: 4/3 pi r cubed. That's the formula. That is the volume formula for a sphere. That's the volume formula for a sphere. All you have to do is create a story. You need a 4 on top and a 3 on bottom. There's a 4 on top and there's a 3 on bottom. Remember the globe that we created? 4/3. What was on top of the globe? A piece of pie for 3.14. And next to the pie was a rat, and he was frozen. He was cubed. 4/3 pi r cubed. So when you have variables, you just create a. If it's multiplication, have the variables next to each other in the story. If it is division, let's say it's radius divided by perimeter, which I'm just making this up. But let's say you need to have radius divided by that wouldn't even that's not even a good example. So let's use base times height. The area formula for a triangle is base times height. Or the area formula for a parallelogram is base times height. So B we need a variable for. I use a bumblebee. H we need a variable for. I use a hat. So B is a bumblebee, H is a hat. Since they are next to each other in the formula, you might see a bumblebee hugging a hat, and that means you need to multiply them. If you needed to divide them, maybe you would put and I'm just making this up. This is not a real formula. If you needed to divide the numbers, maybe you put the hat on top of the B, because you are dividing the hat by the B. So you have B divided by H, or H divided by B. Does that make sense? Create pictures for the variables and then create a story. If it's division, have them standing on top of each other. If it's multiplication, have them next to each other, maybe hugging each other. If it is subtraction, have the bumblebee taking a hat away. You're taking something away. So if it's subtraction, have it taken away in the story. If it's division, have it standing on top of the other one. If it's multiplication, have it embracing it with a hug. That is how you memorize math formulas. The first step, though, is to create pictures for the variables. So don't even try to memorize the math formulas. Go through, create pictures for the variables, and then create a story with the pictures you've created, and it should be very easy. Black Belt Memory, blackbeltmemory.com. The question was asked, where did I come up with these ideas? Thanks, Pretz. I came up with some of the ideas just by trying it, but really, I'm nearly 46 years old. I took a memory seminar when I was 18 years old. And when I took this memory seminar, I really liked it. And then I just started reading every memory book out there and learning different techniques. And the more you learn the foundation, which the foundation is the memory palace, and then the next layer of that foundation is creating images for what you want to recall. But once you understand those two principles, that number one, you need a place to store the data, which is known as the memory palace. And then number two, you need to turn whatever you want to remember into pictures. Once you understand those two fundamental things, then you can just start getting creative, and you can kind of start coming up with your own methods and techniques. And a lot of people do. You know, I've competed in the USA Memory Championship in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 18. I've competed 7 times. I competed in the World Memory Championship once in 2009. And when you compete in tournaments like this, you just start talking to people and brainstorming, and they'll give you ideas, and it's just a community. So, but you got to practice and lay the foundation. Most of the techniques I learned. Some of them I created on my own. Do I have an easy way to remember jujitsu techniques? That's the question that just came in. If you know anybody that I do jujitsu with, they will tell you clearly I don't. But actually, I think there are some ways. Let me create a video on that one day. And actually, I need to apply it to myself because I personally need to get better at jujitsu. So that's something that's actually a goal of mine. Thank you, Raymond. I appreciate that. Ahmad Taha asks, is there a full course from you that allows us to prepare us completely to participate in the World Memory Championships? I would say to you that my memory course, Black Belt Memory, blackbeltmemory.com, is a great foundation for a memory tournament. I'm putting it in the comments on YouTube. I'd say it's a great foundation as far as competing in memory tournaments, there are Facebook groups. Mine is one. I have one called memorize.org. Go to Facebook and type in memorize with an S, not a Z, memorize.org. Search that in the search bar of Facebook. And I have a group there, and a lot of people who compete in memory tournaments are in that group, and you might want to join. Can these exercises help people with, George is asking, what about autism or ADD? ADD is simple. That's a simple solution. These techniques aren't going to cure ADD, but a person with ADD could do these techniques. Does that make sense? I have a guy who sells my course. I don't want to say he's a salesman for me. He's more of a business partner, but he sells my course, and he has dyslexia and ADD. He can still do this memory system. I will tell you this memory system does not cure ADD or dyslexia, but somebody with dyslexia or ADD can do this. Autism, I believe it can help. This is what I tell people. This is not going to cure ADD or autism, but it can help. I promise everybody who takes my memory course, blackbeltmemory.com, everybody who takes my memory course will increase their memory by a minimum of 300%. 300% or threefold. So if a person has autism, 300%. If a person is a genius, 300%. How much time should I allocate for memory training daily if I want to have an expert memory? Mahmoud Abbas. Mahmoud Abbas? Mahmoud Abbas who is that? That's like a famous guy. Was he he's a leader. Who is that? I'm losing my voice. I'm not going to be able to stand here much longer. I'm losing my voice. What was the question? How much time should I allocate for memory training daily if you want to have an expert memory? Practice every day at the beginning. Practice every day at the beginning. And what I would encourage you to do by practicing every day is practice by creating pictures every day. For the first month, every day. Practice every day at the beginning on two main areas. Every time you see a person, turn their name into a picture. They got a name tag on, turn it into a picture. There's a name on a billboard, turn it into a picture. For example, Steve is a stove, Lisa's the Mona Lisa, Karen is a carrot, Brian is a brain. Every time you see somebody, turn their name into a picture, and do that for the first month. And you may say, well, Ron, I don't really want to get better at names and faces. You don't have to. This is just training your brain to starting to see pictures. Number two, turn every number you see into a picture. Now, some numbers are going to be easy. 24, you might think of a 2x4, a piece of wood. But some other numbers are harder. What are you going to do for 89? You know what I'm saying? So for that, you're going to need my black belt memory course. blackbeltmemory.com. Just start turning things into pictures, practicing every day that way. Once you have a mental database of pictures for names and numbers and words built up, like I do, then you don't have to practice every day anymore. You just have to practice when you want to memorize something. Okay, so Kazi Purba has said, Ron, you don't know how you have helped me virtually all the time from 2016. Your videos, your advice are gems. You're a lifesaver. Thank you so much, Ron. I really appreciate that, Kazi. I don't know if I'm I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I appreciate that. This is hard. What I do, I mean, my brain's not, my work isn't, I guess, working construction in the 100-degree weather. That's hot. That's hard. I really shouldn't say my job is hard. But I will say it is hard to always try to create creative content for you, put out value. And so I appreciate that kind of feedback. It keeps me going. It motivates me. Thank you very much. How am I? I am doing good. How long would it take me, QB World, how long would it take me to memorize a book? Yeah, it depends on the length of the book. I will tell you this, I don't think you should want to memorize a book word for word, unless it's a poem or poetry or the Constitution or something religious. I don't think you should want to memorize a book word for word. Instead, I think you should want to memorize a word thought by thought, which is a lot easier. And the way you would do that is when you read with a pen. Don't try to memorize as you read. Instead, read with a pen, and as you come to something interesting, circle it, underline it, highlight it. Then when you get to the end of that chapter, you might have 20 things underlined or highlighted. Then take those 20 things and create pictures for them and imagine those pictures around your mind palace. If you're just joining us and you don't know what a mind palace is, you can go to YouTube and search Mind Palace. You can watch the beginning of this video. But to memorize a book, the key words, the key ideas, it wouldn't take you but a couple hours. It would take longer to read it. But after you get done reading it, you'll have everything highlighted or circled that you want to memorize and just put it in your mind palace. If it's word for word, it's going to take longer. I'm attempting to memorize this book right now, the preamble of the Constitution of the United States, 7,000 words, and I think it'll take me about a month. Let's see. How do you remember names and faces? Okay. Let me give you an example how to do names and faces with this guy right here. So the question is how do you remember names and faces? That's going to pretend like you're meeting this guy right here. This is my friend. Let's call him. What do you want his name to be? Comment in the comments what you want his name to be, and we will memorize it. Anybody got a name for this guy? Roger. Roger. All right. Thank you, Klaus. Okay, Roger. His name is Roger, comes from a YouTube comment just now. To remember a name, the first thing that you need to do is you need to pick out something distinct or unique about that person. What stands out to you that's unique about this alien? What is unique about the face? Is it the hair? Is it the eyes? Is it the mouth? Is it the nose? When you want to remember names, the first thing you have to do is you have to observe the face, and you have to select something unique about the face. Comment, Alan just says it's unique. What is unique about this is the big eyes. Let's go with that. So you're out at a business meeting or you're at a party and you see this person. How do you remember their name? First thing you do is you zone in on their unique feature, which in this case would be their eyes. We've determined that his name is Roger. We have to have a picture for the name Roger. If the name was Steve, we could use stove. If it was Lisa, we could use the Mona Lisa. If it was Matt, we could use a mat, like you wipe your feet on a mat. For Roger, I use a chair with a metal rod going right through that chair. A metal rod, R-O-D. Rod, chair. Rod, chair. So a metal rod, boom, in a chair. I would visualize that in his eyes. A metal rod in a chair. And that is how you remember names. You look for a distinctive feature on their face, come up with a picture for that, and see that on their face. Rock chair, that works fine. Here's some other names that came through that we could have done. Bernie, Corey wanted us to use Bernie. For Bernie, I use knees that are burning. So I would see burning knees for Bernie. Another name that came in was Alexa. For Alexa, I would use the Amazon Alexa. What was some other names here? Arthur, I use somebody writing a book. They're an author. Arthur. So that's how you remember names. Pablo asked the question, how do you memorize a deck of cards? He says he's tried PAO. It requires a lot of practice. I'd like to know your opinion. Your content is amazing. So Pablo asked a question on how you memorize a deck of cards, and he referenced a term called PAO. PAO is something that's really only known to memory experts. People compete in memory tournaments. It's something that I learned in 2008. And it is, in my opinion, the best way to memorize a deck of cards. With that said, there are some other methods that are a little bit more advanced, but they require much more work. I think if you don't want to dedicate a year of your life mastering memorizing a deck of cards and creating an image for just so many insane different images, I think PAO is the way to go. I really don't want to go into what PAO is here on this stream because I can't go much longer and I don't want to get too sidetracked. But I think it's the way to go. I used PAO to go from memorizing a deck of cards in 6 minutes to 1 minute and 27 seconds, which was the fastest in the United States. The fastest I've ever memorized any deck ever was 1 minute, 1 second. I have never broken 60 seconds. That is actually a bucket list item for me. I want to memorize a deck of cards in under 60 seconds one day. That's at a tournament, an official score. And I will do it using PAO. If you don't know what we're talking about, what is PAO, go to YouTube, type in how to memorize a deck of cards, and you'll have my video there describing PAO. Okay, here's a question that comes up all the time. And it just came up again. It's like one of the most popular questions. I need to do a video just on this. But the question is how do you memorize chemistry formulas? If you were on this video 15 minutes ago when I talked about how to memorize math formulas, it's the same. It's the same. Memorizing chemistry formulas is the same as memorizing math formulas. The difference is that in math formulas, you're going to have stuff like radius and perimeter and width. You're going to have the variables are going to be geometry. In memorizing chemistry, the things that you're going to have is stuff like hydrogen, carbon, and nitrogen, and oxygen. You just have to come up with pictures. A hydrogen could be somebody waving high. A nitrogen could be a knight, like a knight in shining armor. Oxygen could be an oxygen tank. So you just have to come up with pictures for the letters and the symbols. And then when you come up with a picture for those letters or symbols, create stories for that formula. I have if you type in how to memorize math formulas on YouTube, I have a whole video on that. But the quick version of it is create pictures for the symbols in the chemistry formulas that you're going to see, like H, hydrogen, C, carbon, sodium is Na. Come up with pictures for these. So for sodium, you might just think of salt, like a salt and pepper shaker. And that salt and pepper shaker has the letters Na written on it. For carbon, you might see a car, somebody driving a car. Just come up with pictures and then create stories using these pictures. Hey, Crone, appreciate you. Excited to have a live stream. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for that. how do you memorize anatomy and physiology? Man, it's the same way, same thing we're doing here. Use the mind palace. Somebody asked, what is the mind palace? It's using the mind palace is something we've addressed on this video already, but basically you're using a room to memorize the data. You number pieces of furniture in a house, and you use those pieces of furniture to store data. Go to YouTube, type in Mind Palace, M-I-N-D, and you'll find my videos on it. Does exaggeration help your memory? Of course, exaggeration helps your memory. The more bizarre and unusual you can make the pictures, the better. How do you not get bored studying for 1 year? You're going to get bored. Just break your work up into chunks. Like I said before I recommended you use something called the Pomodoro technique, where you set a timer for 25 minutes. You study for 25 minutes, then you take a 5-minute break. You set the timer again, you study for 25 minutes, and you take a break. Research has shown that we can really only focus intently for about 25 minutes, and then our focus tends to diminish. So that's why you want to reset the timer, or take a break and then reset the timer. And then every time you do 4 of those sessions, maybe take a 30-minute break after the 4th one. But that's just how you focus. And another thing is break it down into easy, manageable steps. Break whatever it is. I memorized everybody who died in the war in Afghanistan. That's 2,400 people. Do you think I wanted to quit during that? It was 7,000 words. Do you think I wanted to quit during that? Yes. I wanted to quit every day. Every minute I wanted to quit. I wanted to quit. It was hard. When I stand at that wall and I write out 7,000 words from memory, people always say to me, thank you, Sean. Yes, I did do it. Sean Murphy's a rock star. Friend request him on Facebook if you're following this on Facebook. I wanted to quit, and I wanted to quit every day. When I stand at that wall and I write out those 7,000 those words from memory, people will say to me, man, you have such a great memory. You have such an incredible memory. And I will tell everybody, this wall is, number one, it's not about me. It's not about me. It's not about me. But if anything about this wall is about me, it's not about my memory. And they're like, what? It is about discipline. Discipline. Everybody who knows the Mind Palace method can memorize 7,000 words in order. Everybody. I did it because I wanted to. I mean, maybe not everybody wants to, but discipline. I wanted to quit every day. How did I not quit? How did I keep my mindset right? This is what I did. I would do 50 a day, 50 to 100 a day. I broke it down into chunks. When I opened up that binder that had the 7,000 words in it, I never told myself I'm going to memorize 7,000 words today. I told myself I'm going to memorize 50 names today. And that's all I focused on. I didn't focus on the overall goal. I just focused on the 50 for today. And by doing that, by focusing on just for today, I was able to believe that it was manageable. Now, every now and then, I had to take a step back and remind myself of the overall goal and the overall vision to keep my motivation up. But every day, I just focused on a small goal, and that's how I did it. Hey, cheers. Somebody said cheers. Somebody's asking about PAO again, noodlery. Man, I just don't want to get too deep into the weeds with how to memorize a deck of cards on this video. Maybe I'll come back to that in a second. I might save that for my last answer. Okay. Somebody said the alien is out of the frame. There we go. All right. The people are. Okay. Jamie Heller, who is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm a black belt in memory. Jamie is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He just asked me a question on Facebook, and this guy is brutal. Jamie Heller, he is a brutal jiu-jitsu master. He asked me, do I use memory techniques to help you with jiu-jitsu? Jamie has rolled with me, and he knows clearly I do not, because I need to get better. I need to get better at jiu-jitsu. I'll say this. There was one time I did use memory techniques with jiu-jitsu. 2 years ago, I competed in a jiu-jitsu tournament. And preparing for that, I memorized 2 moves from each position. I remember, in other words, if I was on top of somebody in jiu-jitsu, that's called mount, I memorized 2 things to do from that position. 2 things to do if I was in another position, which is in somebody's guard. So I memorized 2 things to do in every position using the Mind Palace technique. But I'll be honest with you, I need to use the memory system more for jiu-jitsu because I am tired of losing all the time. I will never beat Jamie. I'm never going to catch up to Jamie, but I do need to get better. And so I'm going to start using the memory system for jiu-jitsu. Language. So Sean Murphy asks, do you use the memory system for languages? Do you use the Memory Palace to memorize languages? You know, I don't think the best way to learn a new language is to memorize a language. The best way to learn a new language is, immersion or practicing it or listening to it, that kind of thing. With that said, no, Sean, we haven't talked about languages yet. With that said, every language, there are some statistics out there that if you know 500 words, the most common words in any language, you could manage getting around speaking that language. And in that scenario, I would say that memory techniques could be beneficial to you. So I know you asked about conjugation, and I'm not going to address that right now in this video because I need to put more thought into that. But let me address non-conjugation. Let's take the word mesa, which in Spanish means table. How do you do that? Visualize a table. So imagine that counter back there as a table. So table, the word is mesa. I would create a picture for the word mesa and imagine a mess, like you just spilled something. So you see this mess. Ah, my alien almost fell over. I would see a mess on top of the table. And every time I look at the table, I would say there's a mess on the table. That would remind me the word for table is mesa. In Spanish, the word for shoe is zapato. I would imagine maybe a potato is in my shoe. A potato is in my shoe. So that would remind me the word for shoe is zapato. Potato, zapato, that kind of thing. I think you could memorize verbs that way too. For example, in Spanish, the word to sleep is descansar. It's a verb. So I would imagine myself at a desk, like a student's desk, and I got a can on the top of my head. This is a bottle, but let's imagine it's a can. I got a can on the top of my head, and I'm sawing it. Desk, can, sar. Desk, can, sar. And what am I doing? I'm resting. Desk, can, sar means to rest. So in Spanish or Japanese or French or whatever, turn the word in English into a picture, turn the word in the other language into a picture, and create a story. Guys, I just got a notification that I have 10% battery left. So I'm gonna start wrapping this up. But if you're on YouTube, especially if you're on YouTube, I appreciate Facebook isn't always so necessary, but on YouTube, I do appreciate the thumbs up on YouTube. So thank you for that. If you would give me a thumbs up on YouTube, that is valuable to me. You can always go back and watch this video from the beginning if you missed it. In this video, we covered a lot of things, and we've been going for an hour and a half now. I covered how to use the Mind Palace in this video. I covered how to give speeches and presentations in this video. I covered how to memorize names and faces in this video. I covered how to memorize math formulas in this video. I just gave some tips on how to memorize foreign languages. We gave some tips on how to stay focused. We gave some tips on we gave a lot of tips on this video. So go back to the beginning if you missed it. Person, action, object was a question that was asked. How do you memorize a deck of cards? I don't have the battery life to go into it. So just go to YouTube, type in how to memorize a deck of cards. My video will be near the top, and you'll find out what person, action, object is there. How do you train your memory every day? Just turn names and numbers and turn everybody's name into a picture for the next 3 weeks. That'll be great memory training. You want to teach memory. If you want to teach kids memory techniques, where to start. I'm not just trying to sell you something here. Obviously, I've spent an hour and a half of my time giving you a lot of value. But if you really want to teach this to kids, get my Black Belt Memory course. Go to blackbeltmemory.com. Black Belt Memory, blackbeltmemory.com. Get my course and go through it with your kids. That's the best way. That's the best way to teach your kids memory. It's to get my course. There's 40 videos. Go through the videos with your kids. All right, guys. Oh, wow. Pablo memorized the Man in the Glass poem. I'm going to end, Pablo. This will be a great display of memory and a great way to end this video. Pablo he's been through my course and he memorized the Man in the Glass, which is a poem. I memorized this poem I memorized it when I was 24 years old. I memorized this poem 21 years ago. And I probably only say it once every 2 years. I've probably said it 4 times in the last 10 years. So let me see how good my memory is. Hi, Janine. How are you? I'm going to quote a 20-line poem from memory, a poem I memorized 20 years ago, as an end to this video. Here's the poem. It's called Man in the Glass by Dale Wimbrough. When you get what you want in your struggle for self and the world makes you king for a day, just go to a mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it is not your father, your mother, or your wife whose judgment upon you must pass, but the fellow's verdict who counts most in your life is the man looking back from the glass. Some people may say you're a square shooting chum and call you a wonderful guy. But the man in the glass says you're only a bum if you can't look him straight in the eye. He's the one to please, never mind the rest, for he's with you clear up till the end. And you'll pass your most dangerous and difficult test if the man in the glass is your friend. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on your back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass. Thank everybody for your time today. We went for an hour and a half. We talked about memory. What a great way to end it with the Man in the Glass poem, reminding you to not cheat yourself out of anything in life. Go back and watch this video if you want. Get my memory course, Black Belt Memory. We talked about a lot, how to memorize names, numbers, speeches, memorize chapters of books, remembers what you read. Sean Murphy is on Facebook and YouTube. Very cool. Thanks, guys. I appreciate everything. You guys rock.